You've heard of Genghis Khan, right? The guy who built the biggest land empire the world has ever seen. But there's so much more to him than just war and bloodshed. What if I told you that this feared warrior also created one of the world's first international passports? Or that he hated torture? Or that his empire was way more tolerant than you'd expect? Yeah, get ready. Because today, we're diving deep into the shocking truths you didn't know about Genghis Khan. And trust me, these facts are going to blow your mind. Let's get into it. Before he was Genghis Khan, the mighty ruler feared across continents. He was Temujin, a boy born into one of the poorest situations you can imagine. He didn't grow up in a castle. He didn't have servants or fancy food. In fact, his early life was full of pain, hunger, and struggle. His father was a tribal leader, but was poisoned by enemies when Temujin was just 9 years old. After that, everything fell apart. His family was abandoned by their own clan. They were left out in the wild with no help, no home, and no food. They had to survive off roots, wild berries, and small animals like rats and squirrels. Temujin, his mother, and his siblings almost starved to death many times. Life on the Mongolian steppe was harsh. Freezing winters, scorching summers, and dangerous enemies everywhere. Every day was about staying alive. This hard life shaped Temujin into someone strong, patient, and smart. He learned to trust no one too easily, to fight for every bite of food, and to never give up no matter how bad things got. Many great leaders were born into wealth. Not him. He came from nothing and turned that into everything. In Temujin's time, the Mongolian steppe was a mess. Dozens of small tribes were constantly fighting over land, animals, and pride. These tribes didn't get along. They raided each other, betrayed each other, and broke alliances all the time. There was no peace. Temujin did something no one else had done. He brought them together. But how? Not through luck. Through strategy. He had a powerful idea. Leadership should be earned, not inherited. In other words, just because someone's father was important didn't mean they should be. Temujin gave power to those who proved themselves through loyalty, intelligence, or courage. This idea attracted people who were fed up with their unfair leaders. Warriors and workers from other tribes started to join him. He built a team of loyal men who trusted him, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. He also changed how battles were fought. Instead of random charges, he used clear commands, clever ambushes, and strict discipline. He organized his troops into units of 10, 100, 1,000, and 10,000, each with leaders who earned their spot. One by one, he defeated rival tribes. But instead of wiping them out, he often welcomed them into his growing army. That's how he turned a divided land of enemies into one powerful force. Here's a twist most people don't expect. Genghis Khan hated torture. He believed it was cruel, wasteful, and pointless. Unlike many rulers of his time who used torture to scare people or drag out confessions, he saw no benefit in it. If someone needed to be punished, it was done quickly. No games. No suffering just for show. His focus was on efficiency. If you were caught breaking the law, the punishment was swift and clear. There was no long trial, no drawn-out pain. It was over fast. This may sound cold, but in a world full of rulers who enjoyed watching people suffer, Genghis Khan's approach was different. He also believed that fear worked best when it was based on facts, not show. If people knew the rules and the results of breaking them, that was enough. He didn't need to make an example of someone through torture. His army's reputation did the talking. This doesn't mean he was soft. Far from it. But he saw pain as a tool, not a hobby. The Mongol Empire stretched across thousands of miles, from China in the east to Europe in the west. That's a huge area to manage. So, how did Genghis Khan control it all? He built a communication network that was way ahead of its time. It was called the Yam. The Yam was a system of relay stations set up across the empire. Each station had fresh horses, supplies, and messengers ready to go. When a rider carrying a message arrived, he'd swap his tired horse for a fresh one and continue. This allowed messages to travel hundreds of miles in just a few days, something no one else could do back then. It worked like a medieval version of FedEx, or even modern email. Information flowed fast. Orders from the capital reached distant armies in record time. News from faraway battles got back to headquarters quickly. This system made Genghis Khan more than just a warrior. He became a manager, and it helped keep his empire running smoothly, even when he wasn't there in person. He understood something most rulers didn't. Power isn't just about force. It's about staying connected. You probably wouldn't expect a warlord from the 1200s to care about religion, but Genghis Khan wasn't like most rulers. He believed that people should be allowed to believe what they wanted, as long as they followed the law and paid their taxes. At a time when religious wars were tearing other parts of the world apart, Genghis Khan welcomed all faiths into his empire. Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, Jews, and others were allowed to worship freely. He even invited holy men from different religions to come to his court and explain their beliefs. Why did he do this? First, he was practical. He didn't want religious arguments causing trouble in his empire. Second, he was curious. He wanted to learn from all sides. And third, he believed that the gods of different people could all be respected. He didn't see the need to force everyone into one belief system. This made him very popular in newly conquered lands. People expected him to ban their religion or destroy their temples. But instead, they found that he protected them. That kind of tolerance was rare back then, and it helped him rule such a huge and diverse empire. Before Genghis Khan rose to power, Mongol society treated women as second class. In many tribes, women could be taken, sold, or traded like cattle. Kidnapping women during raids was common, and forced marriage was part of life. Genghis Khan changed that. He passed strict laws that banned kidnapping and human trafficking. He saw women not just as property, but as valuable members of society. That might not sound like much today, but for the 13th century, it was revolutionary. He gave women more legal protection than they had ever known before. He also gave them more power. Some of his own daughters were appointed to rule large territories in his empire. They weren't just figureheads. They were real leaders who managed trade, handled armies, and made big decisions. He also gave his wives political roles. When he left to go on military campaigns, his wives and daughters often took over government duties back home. Genghis Khan wasn't perfect. He had multiple wives, and there were still issues of inequality. But compared to many other rulers of his time, he gave women a stronger voice, and that made a big difference. Running an empire is hard. Running an empire that stretches across different countries, cultures, and languages is even harder. That's why Genghis Khan introduced a system of laws called the Yasa. The Yasa wasn't written down in the way modern laws are, but everyone in the empire knew the rules. It was a kind of secret law code that governed everything: military discipline, family behavior, crime, punishment, and more. The laws were strict, but they were clear, and they applied to everyone, from the lowest soldier to the highest general. Some of the laws were pretty intense. Stealing a horse? Death. Lying to your commander? Death. But others showed Genghis Khan's practical side. For example, he banned blood feuds. He also made sure that people shared food with those in need. His goal was to bring order. He didn't want chaos in the ranks or fights between tribes. The Yasa helped create a strong, unified system that kept people focused and organized. Under his leadership, the Mongol army became one of the most disciplined forces in history. And that discipline started with the law. Before Genghis Khan, the Silk Road, a famous trade route connecting China and Europe, was dangerous. Bandits ruled the road. Merchants were robbed or killed. Goods were lost. Trade was slow. Genghis Khan changed that completely. Once his empire stretched across the length of the Silk Road, he made it a top priority to protect it. He sent soldiers to guard the routes. He built stations where travelers could rest, eat, and get help. And most importantly, he declared that merchants were under his personal protection. He even gave trusted merchants a special tablet, like an official license, saying, "This trader travels under protection of the great Khan." Anyone who harmed a merchant with this tablet will be punished severely. No questions asked. This created one of the safest environments for trade the world had ever seen. Goods started flowing fast. Spices, silk, gold, paper, medicine. But it wasn't just stuff that moved. Ideas traveled too, about science, religion, music, and technology. Under Genghis Khan, The Silk Road became not just a road for business, but a bridge between cultures. So, what can we learn from all this? Genghis Khan was more than a conqueror. He was a master of strategy, a lawmaker, a unifier, a protector of trade, and a leader who believed in merit over birth. He was cruel when he had to be, but he also had a vision for something bigger. He changed history in ways most people don't even realize. His empire shaped the modern world. It helped connect the East and West. It spread new ideas, technology, and knowledge across continents. And yet, he remains one of the most misunderstood people in history. Thought Genghis Khan was just a warlord? Think again. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.